So that was Icarus. Perhaps flying too close to the sun? I don't know. Maybe more on that later. So that's Dean Hall's latest survival game. Now, it's not due out until 2021. And it's going to be free to play, which is an interesting model. Be interesting to see how it goes. I just wanted to make this quick video. As a DayZ fan, I'm a long-term player of DayZ. Obviously, Dean Hall was the creator, the person that had the idea for DayZ and the mod that was originally from Arma 2 that became DayZ mod, and then it became DayZ Standalone. And it's the reason why I switched to playing PC games. DayZ Standalone is probably my all-time favourite game. Love it or hate it. I know it's held up as a model of something that's wrong with early access. I love DayZ Standalone. It is my favourite game. I'm not going to lie. I like the sandbox genre. Anyway, on to this game. This doesn't look like it's a sandbox game. So whilst it's being touted as Dean Hall's next survival game, and how Dean Hall was kind of the creator of the survival genre, I personally think Dean Hall was the creator of the survival sandbox genre. There's been games as long as I can remember where you had to try and keep your character alive and go through levels or whatever. What DayZ was, to me anyway, was the first sandbox game where when you met somebody, any random interaction was possible. You could hold someone up, you could kill them, you could be friends, you could trade, you could get information, you could be tortured, you could be let go with nothing but your boots, or no boots, you know. The random interactions that can happen in DayZ are what creates the stories and what creates the game. Icarus isn't a sandbox game as far as I can tell. Before we move on to my own thoughts about the game, you may already have an idea of what I think, but before we move on to that, I just wanted to share some answers that Dean Hall gave on a stream on Saturday by PC Gamer, where they announced this game. So it was actually announced on a PC Gamer live stream, and he had an interview with the host for 7 minutes on that particular show. I want to share with you a couple of video clips of Dean Hall talking about the game. And then I'll move on to telling you what I think. Now, this is very, very early doors. I'm hopeful that there might be a really good game here, but whether it's for fans of DayZ and the survival sandbox genre or not is another matter. That doesn't mean it won't be a really good game, though. Right, this is what Dean Hall had to say about the game in the interview on Saturday.
Well, I think if you think about your first hour in DayZ, your first hour in Minecraft, really what we're trying to do is capture that and then basically build a game where you can do that over a long period of time and you can progress through the survival experience. So it was really getting back to the roots of what a survival game is and what makes those moments that you get in them really intense and emotional. If you think about the orbital station as your apartment in GTA, you can invite your friends in and prepare for what we call a drop. And then you select a prospect. And the big challenge of the game, and the way to fail it, I guess, is to run out of time on the drop. There were 3 key things that I felt needed to be addressed before I made another survival game. The first was the ability to scale. By breaking your experience over months and years into sessions, that allowed us to address scale. So you still can do all the things that you do in a normal survival game, building bridges, roads, all those kinds of things. But you're doing it with a medium-term focus. The second was pacing and clear direction, which is helped very much by the structure that we're putting around the session. And the last one is really focusing in on those core survival mechanics, which I really feel is the whole reason that survival as a genre connects so emotionally with players. So early on, we're really just introducing you to more safe environments. So say a daytime drop that only lasts 20 minutes. You're only going to be facing the game during the day. As you progress on, you can take on and get access to prospects that have much longer drop windows, but that means you're getting a cycle of day and night. And night, particularly for most of our biomes, is definitely the most dangerous. With Icarus, we've chosen one failure state. If you run out of time on your drop, that character and all its equipment is gone.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make that terrifying, and that's why our tagline is, there are worse fates than death. So it's getting left behind. If you miss your rendezvous window with the orbital station, then that's it. Everything that you've deployed on there, your character and all that progression of that character and all that equipment is just gone. And that's our one failure state. If you run out of oxygen, someone can come and revive you. If you get attacked by this particular animal and damaged, someone can heal you. But if you run out of time, it's over.
So some of you may have already seen that, so apologies if I'm sort of repeating. I'm going to sort of talk about my own thoughts while the trailer kind of loops behind, because I think that's more interesting than showing you a picture of their website. One thing I'm not getting from the little information that's available so far is the word sandbox, which I did hint at before. What makes DayZ so cool is its story writing sort of vision. You know, you spawn in with nothing and ultimately every character in DayZ dies, but the journey along the way is where the game is. You know, what happens when you meet other people, how you loot, what direction you're forced by AI or wolves or zombies or whatever. The actual survival, the story of that survival is what dictates the gameplay. This has a much more of a feel of like, I don't know, like a Fallout style mission based game where you're going from your sort of pod in space down to a planet, completing a mission and then trying to escape back again, which could be fun. It could create some urgency and some real need to try and complete something. But if it's trying to recreate the first hour of DayZ, as Dean Hall kind of suggested, or the first hour of Minecraft, that feels a bit more single player like. Now it doesn't mean that it won't be multiplayer. Certainly in these interviews and the information that's available so far, it doesn't really say whether this game's full sandbox survival open world. Doesn't feel like it will be, given that he's sort of talking about going back to your pod and that's like your apartment in GTA. It feels more like it might be a single player / co-op survival game where you can go in and try and complete a task with some friends, try and complete it and succeed or not, and then get back and sort of win your round, if you like. Whether it will be like that and a bit like Tarkov where you're going into a map and competing to complete it against other people or not, doesn't really suggest it, but from what's being shared it feels like that's probably not the case. It feels more like it's going to be single or co-op trying to complete a mission, as opposed to lots of people trying to complete the same mission at the same time, and some will succeed and some won't. I don't think it's like a PvP orientated game. It feels more like PvE, solo, squad play, survival. My read of the game might be wrong, but that's where it sort of feels at this stage. That got me thinking. Way back when I first started making YouTube videos, Dean Hall was still in Bohemia making DayZ, and one of the things that was his foundations for DayZ was something called Hall's Law, which I'm going to share that with you now. This is actually a quote from Dean Hall, but I used it at the end of one of my kind of old and crappy YouTube videos. And you can see what it says here. All things being equal, a random interaction between human players will always be more compelling than one that is scripted. That's an interesting line. Now, that was what Dean Hall described as Hall's Law when thinking about the inception of DayZ and what underpinned the development of DayZ. Now, that doesn't seem to be underpinning the development of this new game. Now, that doesn't make it bad. It makes it different. It might be aiming at a different audience. But if you think Dean's making a new DayZ in space, it doesn't seem to be that way from what's being shared so far. It seems far more like it's a kind of a mission-based game where you're trying to complete a mission, and when you've done it, you can save your progress and keep progressing your character on. I still think this game could be interesting, but I don't think it's aimed at a DayZ fan base, let's say. A couple of things that came up from the trailer that just sort of strike a chord with me in terms of the game's idea and the premise of it. It does seem a little bit strange to be seeing base building a little bit like The Forest and hacking trees down with an improvised axe, whilst you also have a hood on your screen because you're wearing a spacesuit and you came down from a space station and you're going to get back up there in some kind of spaceship or rocket. The idea that some spaceman comes down to a planet and builds a fire to cook something, but has to wear his helmet because he can't breathe, yet there's a fire and oxygen is needed to burn a fire, right? So it just seems a little bit of a strange dynamic at the moment. This may be a lot to do with the lore of the game, and the lore for DayZ was amazing, but the idea that a spaceman is coming down and then playing The Forest for half an hour and then escaping a spaceship again, having cooked his deer or whatever it was, space deer. The actual inception for the game doesn't seem to quite fit with the gameplay, if you like. Coming down on a spaceship and doing those things doesn't really quite strike a chord. But it's early days. I hope I'm proved wrong on that. That's kind of really where I'm at for the time being. This game is not like DayZ. I don't think it's trying to be DayZ, but it is trying to be a survival game. Dean Hall's intrinsically linked to DayZ, so talking about the differences and how this game might be, it seemed like a viable thing to do as a DayZ content creator. Oh, I hate those words. We'll see how it goes. The name is interesting. Survive Icarus. In Greek mythology, I think it's Greek, this is from memory, but in mythology anyway, Icarus used homemade wings that I think his dad had made him to try and escape from Crete, or escape from somewhere. And in the process of escaping, he flew too close to the sun, his wings melted, his homemade wings, the glue that was binding them together melted, and he fell to the ground and sadly was no more. That's an interesting, ironic, some might say, name to choose for a new survival game, given that it's the first survival game that Dean has made since DayZ, and now this new one that's maybe going to be the sort of phoenix from the flames, if you like, with regards to the survival genre, is named Icarus. Hopefully that's not a sign of things to come. Anyway, that's Icarus and what we know so far. It's very, very early days. With anything like this game could be anything at this stage. The fact that it's free to play and it's survival means that it might well be very, very popular. And if it's fun to repeat the missions and to do new things and to progress your character on, then it could be a lot of fun to play. I hope it is. I just don't think it will be for the type of person that was a lover and maybe still is a lover of DayZ Standalone or DayZ Mod, or any of the other games that have come out in that kind of genre since. Hope you like this little sort of first thoughts video, guys. I'll catch you in the next DayZ video. The next helicopter one is well underway. I've already started editing it. Probably be out on Sunday. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next video. Love you, bye.